fabricated by the oil and coal industry to protect their own profits at the expense of our lives and our planet. The impacts of climate change is not something that is about to happen. It is happening. For decades, marginalized communities of color have been disproportionately impacted by toxic pollution and seen their quality of life diminish. We see that in Barrio Logan, that is 10 minutes south from here, where the residents are not able to breathe their own air. And communities like Flint, Michigan, where they can't even drink their own water because of lead contamination. You see, sisters and brothers, I have grown up in a marginalized community that was negatively impacted by toxic air pollution. At the age of 3, I was rushed to the hospital screaming, "I can't breathe," when I fell unconscious at the hands of doctors. When I woke up, the doctors notified my family that I had been diagnosed with severe asthma. 30 years after my diagnosis, children to this day are being rushed to the ER and being diagnosed with asthma. This needs to end. Not only is it irrational to protect polluting industries, but it is immoral. The White House is beholden to these polluting industries for one reason and one reason only, and that is money. Fortunately, we have a presidential candidate that not only accepts that climate change is real, but also recognizes the devastating impacts climate change has on our communities. Senator Sanders understands the need to have an environmental and climate justice national plan by co-sponsoring the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal is a comprehensive plan that incorporates a just transition framework by shifting away from the reliance of polluting energy sources like fossil fuels and carbon emissions and moving into sources of renewable energy efficiency. This plan talks about creating millions of good union jobs, which in turn will be a reinvestment to communities that have been historically deprived of healthy and sustainable economic opportunities. Most importantly, Senator Sanders has shown to be a serious candidate by not accepting special interest money, so that accountability of his future presidential administration would not be beholden to dark special interest groups like oil and gas, but to people like you and me. Sisters and brothers, our communities and planet can't wait any longer. Please remember to vote for Bernie on our upcoming primary election. And when is it? Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020. So register your friends and family so that they too have the opportunity to vote for Bernie. Remember, our future can wait, and your vote can prevent climate change. So vote for Senator Sanders for U.S. President.
Wow, did Sandy just kill it or what? Are you fired up? I know I am. I'm Tom Lemon. I'm with the San Diego Building and Construction Trades Council. I represent union workers. Every day, we fight for fair pay, health care, pensions, job site safety for women and men who build this city. Fighting for workers has been my life's work, and it's been a tough fight. While corporations are making more and more, they share less and less. Weak politicians from both parties screw over working people with their pockets and campaign cash from Wall Street and the billionaire class, and I butchered that one, but we've all seen enough slick con men like Donald Trump. They claim to care about workers, but really, they only care about getting elected and staying in power. But we don't give up. We stand together. We care for one another. We keep fighting on behalf of hard-working men and women here in San Diego. And we know Bernie Sanders doesn't give up either. He spent his entire life fighting for health care for all. Secure retirements, like my friend Al Schur over there, whose union retirement, he's giving half of it every month to the Bernie Sanders campaign. Thanks, Al! Fighting for their minimum wage. Fighting for gender equity. He fights for our Muslim brothers and sisters. And like Sandy says, he fights for a green jobs program to save our planet while putting Americans back to work. He fights for an economy that works for all of us, not just those at the very top. Bernie doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. Literally. Last fall, when San Diego hotel workers at the Weston gas lamp went on strike, he stood by their he stood with them, walked the line. Bernie walked the picket line with San Diego workers against the biggest hotel corporation in the world. He helped put a spotlight on their race, and he helped them win a 40% wage increase. Last year at Disneyland, while working under sad working conditions at the happiest place on earth, Bernie Sanders said, "Their fight is our fight," and took action. Bernie spoke out against poverty at Disneyland. He said there's under no certain terms that a company that makes $9 billion a year should have workers that go hungry. And this past Wednesday, he stood with the UC workers fighting for fair pay. Fair pay and more funding for public education in California. That's Bernie, and only Bernie. He doesn't just talk about supporting workers. Bernie stands with workers every single day by walking picket lines and taking on big corporations. And Bernie, our fight is his fight. Because the richest company in the world, because in the richest company of the country in the world, no one who works 40 hours a week should be living in poverty. One job should be enough. Working for a living actually should mean earning a living wage. And we're on that. Clearly, women who do the same job as men should make the same wages. And Bernie believes that. There we go. $15 an hour. Thank you, brother. Healthcare should be a basic right for everyone, not a bargaining chip. These things are achievable, but it needs to be easier for workers to join unions and have a voice on the job. Because that's how we're going to rebuild the middle class. We need to get serious about a green jobs program to protect our environment and create good-paying jobs for working people. For Bernie, these issues aren't just part of his campaign speech. It's his life's work. That's why Bernie stands with workers here in San Diego, California, and across the nation. And that's why I'm proud to be here today and with all of you. These are tough fights, but we're prepared to stand together. There's no limit to what we can accomplish. Let's fight together and win 2020. Thank you.
Lucky now it's almost 2020, it's about to get ugly. I'ma knock on every door and I don't care who gon' judge me now. Cause we've been fighting nepotism, all these leaders in position, all these prisons pay attention. They don't wanna feel the burn, they try to hustle the competition. Name another politician that you know that this consistent. This persistence for the people, education make a difference. Yeah, the fight for 15, and equality for women, comprehensive immigration and a real black agenda. Medicare for all, yeah, you start to get the message. I'm
standing tall, our revolution's calling for the rights of all. No dreams too big or small for me. Standing tall, our revolution's calling for the rights of all. No dreams too big or small for me.
Yeah. Don't you worry about the swag. Matter of fact, you can put it on my tab. We counting every vote, they think they got it in the bag. $27 and they still getting mad. So progressive and we never gon' let up. Burn the establishment, I'm screaming from the neck up. This is our time, this is our fight. These are my kids, this is my life. This ain't about the left, this ain't about the right. Nobody cares if your MAGA hat's on tight. Your little baby still yelling for the wall still, while the poor still trying to pay their light bill. 40 hours got them begging for a living wage. Vietnam vets still trying to see a better day. Instead of crying in the ocean full of misery, we gon' stand tall with the burn, making history.
Senator Sanders stood up when he didn't have to stand up as a young man. The way to define the character of a person is what they do when the cameras are not on, what they do when they don't benefit from it personally. He is a champion for civil rights and social justice in this country. The time is right and the cause is now. Senator Sanders understands that we as a country, black, white, Asian, Native American, young, seasoned, Muslim, Christian, Jew, Gentile, atheist, all of us together. All of us together. All of us together.
For the rights of all, no dreams too big or small for me. Standing tall, our revolution's calling for the rights of all. No dreams too big or small for me.
What's going to be different this time? We're going to win.
The Pied Piper Bernie Sanders for the middle class. What a GOP wants to put our interests last. He's gonna give it to you raw, no hesitation. With the right ideas to lead this great nation. No handouts, no special interest groups. He don't lie to give votes, he's telling you the truth. And while the media wants to downplay him, he's still gonna fight. Tell him all he ain't playing. Push him for higher wages so we all can free the families. The only one I know who can conquer this insanity of this Wall Street bickering, belittling the poor. Dollar bills, only thing they considering. When people need health care, kids need school. When it comes to politics, Bernie's breaking rules. No attack gets on the competition's needed. He's running on the facts and it's something that we needed. Feel the burn, make him feel the burn. All the way to the White House, feel the burn. Feel the burn, make him feel the burn. Till the haters on the right, they can feel the burn. Feel the burn, make him feel the burn. All the way to the White House, feel the burn. Feel the burn, make him feel the burn. Till the haters on the left, they can feel the burn. You see him scared shook, he's a democratic socialist. They don't even know what it means, they just roll. Get over it. Check the resume, fight for civil rights ever since the first day. While other candidates still with their hands out. We do it old school, grassroots stand out. Cause this is our time to have a voice to serve. You fat cats had your chance, now it's our turn. They say you can't win, he's too liberal, way too extreme, too honest and too cynical. They want another robot politician, the same old rhetoric, now they gon' listen. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. All the way to the White House, feel the burn. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. Till the haters on the right, they can feel the burn. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. All the way to the White House, feel the burn. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. Till the haters on the left, they can feel the burn.
Millions and millions of working people who are working hard but are not making enough money to put bread on the table or to take care of their kids, and that has got to end. Time has come. People all over this country create a political movement that says to the billionaire class, you can't have it all.
Burn, make them feel the burn. All the way to the White House, feel the burn. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. Till the haters on the right, they can feel the burn. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. All the way to the White House, feel the burn. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. Till the haters on the left, they can feel the burn. All I hear's a lot of rhetoric, a bunch of sellouts still trying to be the president. Lining up their pockets with that Wall Street money. Now they trying to throw dirt until we all get muddy. But I'ma make them quack, make them squeal rubber ducky. In 2016, you Bernie haters got lucky. Now it's almost 2020, it's about to get ugly. I'ma knock on every door and now care who gon' judge me now. Cause we've been fighting nepotism, all these leaders in position, all these prisons pay attention. They don't wanna feel the burn, they try to hustle the competition. Name another politician that you know that this consistent. This persistence for the people, education, make a difference. Yeah, the fight for 15 and equality for women, comprehensive immigration and a real black agenda. Medicare for all, yeah, you start to get the message.
Standing tall, our revolution's calling for the rights of all. No dreams too big or small for me. Standing tall, our revolution's calling for the rights of all. No dreams too big or small for me.
Yeah. Don't you worry about the swag. Matter of fact, you can put it on my tab. We counting every vote, they think they got it in the bag. $27 and they still getting mad. So progressive and we never gon' let up. Burn the establishment, I'm screaming from the neck up. This is our time, this is our fight. These are my kids, this is my life. This ain't about the left, this ain't about the right. Nobody cares if your MAGA hat's on tight. Your little baby still yelling for the wall still, while the poor still trying to pay their light bill. 40 hours got them begging for a living wage. Vietnam vets still trying to see a better day. Instead of crying in the ocean full of misery, we gon' stand tall with the burn, making history.
Senator Sanders stood up when he didn't have to stand up as a young man. The way to define the character of a person is what they do when the cameras are not on, what they do when they don't benefit from it personally. The time is right and the cause is different. Senator Sanders understands that we must Asian, Native American, Muslim, Christian,
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Senator Nina Turner!
San Diego! San Diego! Are we feeling the burn? Are we feeling the burn? And so am I. I took my notes out my purse. Just looking back at this building right here, the noblest motive is the public good. And that's what Senator Bernie Sanders is all about. This building was built in the 1930s with the WPA. A time during the New Deal when we understood how important it was to build things together for the public good. If I might, I want to quote Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. She said these words, "What the people want is simple. They want an America as good as its promise." It's simple to live a good life. It's simple to have clean water, clean air, clean food. It's simple to take care of Mother Earth. It's simple to ensure that our children and our children's children have it better than we have today. It is simple to live in a country where we have Medicare for all. It is simple to live in a country where women make their whole damn dollar. Ladies, say whole damn dollar. It is simple to have a country that will adjust and implement policies in criminal justice that will lift and not treat black and brown folks more criminal than anybody else. And it's simple. Now, we don't begrudge anybody for having wealth. I was born poor. I don't want to die poor. But what we are sick and tired of is excessive greed on the backs and the necks of the working people of this country. It's simple. What the people want is simple. They want an America as good as its promise. And San Diego, if we are willing to stand together, to work together, to fight together, to pray together, we can make the impossible possible. And so there is a champion among our midst. And as the millennials understand this, we bring receipts with this champion. He didn't just start being a champion of the people, he's always been a champion of the people. He doesn't need polling results to tell him what the post should be. He is a visionary, very much ahead of his time. And if we roll the tape from 10 years ago, if we roll the tape from 20 years ago, if we roll the tape from 30 years ago, if we roll the tape from 40 years ago, Senator Bernard Sanders has been singing the same song about the uplift of the people all of his life. We got the receipts. And the reason why the senator fights so hard is because he has a lived experience. Being the son of an immigrant from Poland who escaped the Holocaust, he understands when immigrants come to this country for a better life. We got the receipts. He understands from his lived experience, living in rent-controlled housing in Brooklyn, and having a mother whose desire it was to move out of that housing, but unfortunately she died before that dream could be realized. He understands what it means to live paycheck to paycheck. His lived experience informs his policies and why he stands up for the people. He understands, being a first-generation college graduate, how important it is to have college for all in this country. He has a lived experience. He understands that when he fought at the University of Chicago, beating back and standing up institutions of racism, he understands that racial injustice hurts us all. He stands up. And sisters and brothers, we don't just only have to talk about what he did back then. Can a sister just talk a little bit about what he has been doing now? San Diego. It was just in October when he stood up with the Marriott workers who said one job should be enough. He marched on Mississippi, in Canton, Mississippi, for Nissan workers who were trying to unionize with the UAW. He understands that unions make jobs stronger and they lift our wages. He understands. He understands what the people want is simple. They want an America as good as his promise, which is why when he is the next president of these United States, and they understand, too, that Senator Bernie Sanders, he doesn't just talk about it. They understand that when he says he will fight for Medicare for all, that's exactly what he will do. That he cannot be bought. That he is the people's champion. That he is, in the words of Dr. Cornel West, a long-distance runner for justice. Now, San Diego, the senator cannot do this alone. And you hear him say time and time and time again that this is not about him, that this is about us. And to the extent that we are standing here together, the rainbow mosaic of humanity, we must be ready that when this rally is over, to get into the fight to ensure that he is the next president of the United States of America. What the people want is simple. And with these hands, sisters and brothers, can everybody under the sound of my voice raise your hand for yourself and somebody else? Because with these hands, we will rise. With these hands, we will have Medicare for all. With these hands, we will have humane immigration reform. With these hands, we will change the criminal injustice system to one of justice. With these hands, we will ensure that we salute and take care of Mother Earth. And with these hands, we will elect Bernie Sanders as the next president of the United States of America.
Thank you, San Diego! Wow, there are more people here than in the state of Vermont. Thank you. Let me begin by thanking great musicians. Let me thank Marlon Cruz for her rendition of the national anthem. Let me thank Sandy Naranjo for her great environmental work. Let me thank Tom Lemon, who's standing up for workers in the trade union movement. And last but not least, let me thank Senator Nina Turner. Now, I've been following Nina all over this country for years. She keeps getting better and better. Thank you, Nina. Let me also thank my family. My wife, Jane, is behind me. Well, she's not behind me. Over there. And we got 3 out of 7 of our grandchildren, and 3 of our kids, and I thank them so much for their support. And also, we have, I believe, a special guest, Mr. Sidney Walton, who is a World War II veteran, 100 years old. Mr. Walton, thank you very much. We owe Mr. Walton and the millions of others who stood up to Nazism and fascism, we owe them more than we can ever repay. Mr. Walton, thank you very much. Before I begin my remarks, submitted his investigative report to the Attorney General. Now, I don't know what's in the report. Nobody does. I do know, however, that Mueller wound up indicting 34 people, including 6 Trump campaign officials. And I also know that it is absolutely imperative that the Trump administration make that report public as soon as possible. Nobody, including the President of the United States, is above the law. The American people have a right to know. And let me just welcome all of you. This is an extraordinary turnout, and I want to thank you all for being part of a campaign which is not only going to carry California, which is going to win the Democratic nomination, which is not only going to defeat Donald Trump, the most dangerous president in the modern history of our country, but with your help, and this is what Nina Turner was talking about, with your help, we are going to transform this country and create a government and an economy that works for all of us, not the 1%. Today, I welcome you to a campaign which says with confidence, with optimism, and with love that the underlying principles of our government will not be greed, will not be kleptocracy, will not be hatred, will not be lies. The underlying principles of our government will not be racism, will not be sexism, will not be xenophobia, will not be homophobia, will not be religious bigotry. Brothers and sisters, those ugly anti-American sentiments are going to end, and they're going to end soon. The principles of our government will be based on justice, economic justice, social justice, racial justice, and environmental justice. Now, Donald Trump and his friends want to divide us up based on the color of our skin, based on our gender, based on the country we were born in, based on our religion or our sexual orientation. Well, our campaign and our government are going to do exactly the opposite. We're going to bring our people together, black and white, Latino, Native American, Asian American, men and women, gay and straight, native born and immigrant. That's what this campaign is about. And when I talk about justice, let me tell you exactly what I mean by that. It means that we will not sit idly by and allow this country to move toward an oligarchic form of society where a handful of billionaires control the economic and political life of this country. We are not going to allow that. And when I talk about justice, it means that we will not allow 3 families in this country, 3 families, to own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. While at the same time, 20% of our children live in poverty, veterans are sleeping out on the streets, and 30 million Americans have no health insurance. That is not justice. Justice means that we will no longer accept a situation in which 46% of all new income is going to the top 1%. While at the same time, millions of Americans are working 2 or 3 jobs to pay the bills, and over half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. Scared to death when you live paycheck to paycheck. Your car may break down. You can't get to work. You don't get to work, you get fired. You get fired, you can't take care of your kids. That is not the economy we want. Justice means that we will no longer accept the reality that CEOs of major corporations now make 300 times what their workers make. While in California, 130,000 people are homeless, and so many people, coast to coast, are living in despair that for the 3rd straight year, our life expectancy has actually gone down. Justice means that we will no longer accept a situation when the top 25 hedge fund managers on Wall Street make twice as much money as all of the kindergarten teachers in this country. And when we talk about injustice in this country, we are talking about racial injustice. At a time when this country is seeing massive levels of disparity, the situation is far worse for African American families. It is not acceptable to me or to you that black families in America own 1/10 of the wealth of white families, that the infant mortality rate for black women is 2.5 times higher than for white women, that redlining in housing continues to exist, that black businesses cannot get the loans they need at affordable rates, that black school districts continue to be underfunded, and that we have a criminal justice system that has much too much racism in it. So let us be clear. When we talk about justice, we mean ending institutional racism all across this nation. And when we talk about justice, it also means doing everything we can to end the growing tribalism and religious bigotry we are seeing in this country and around the world. Since Trump has been president, there has been a significant increase in hate crimes in this country. We are seeing more attacks against African Americans, against Jews, against gays, against immigrants, and against the Muslim community. And clearly, this is not just an American phenomenon. All of us are shocked beyond belief at the horrible massacre of Muslims in New Zealand that we saw last week. This is the year 2019, and we have seen for too long genocide. We have seen for too long levels of hatred that are unbelievable. We have seen too much divisiveness. So tonight we tell Donald Trump, we are no longer going to allow you to divide our nation up. And under our administration, we are going to lead the world in human rights, in bringing people together. We have got to end the hatred and divisiveness we see in this country and around the world. And when we talk about justice, we are talking about political justice. We are talking about creating a political system which is based on the democratic principle of one person, one vote. And we are going to end a corrupt system which allows billionaires to buy elections and which allows cowardly Republican governors to suppress the vote against people of color and poor people. Under our administration, we are going to make it easier for people to vote, not harder. Now, as many of you will recall, when we first launched our campaign back in 2015, very few folks took our campaign seriously. The ideas that we were talking about then were considered by establishment politicians and mainstream media to be radical and extreme. Ideas that they said would never be supported by the American people. You remember that? Raising the minimum wage to a living wage, too radical. Guaranteeing health care to all, too radical. Creating up to 15 million jobs by investing $1 trillion to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, too radical. Aggressively combating climate change and saving the planet, too radical. Legalizing marijuana. Oh my God. Now that is a radical idea that will never happen. Who the hell was talking about that? Reforming our broken criminal justice and immigration systems. Not having a super PAC or being dependent on the rich for campaign contributions. Imagine that. Too radical. All right, listen to this one. I mean, this is so far out, hard to believe. Imagine ending the power of superdelegates at the Democratic National Convention. Imagine that, allowing ordinary people to determine who becomes president, not wealthy political insiders. Well, brothers and sisters, a funny thing happened over the last several years. In 2016, we won victories in 22 states. We won over 13 million votes, over 1,700 delegates, not a lot of superdelegates, real delegates. And what is most exciting to me, and I think most important, we ended up winning in 2016 more votes from young people, black and white and Latino, Asian American, Native Americans. We won more votes from young people than Trump and Clinton combined. And by the way, those ideas that we talked about 4 years ago here in California and around the country, those ideas that seemed so very radical, well, today, virtually all of those ideas are supported by a majority of the American people. And they are ideas that are being supported by Democratic candidates from school board to President of the United States. So, brothers and sisters, it turns out that justice is not such a radical idea. We have come a long way in the last 4 years. Now we are about to complete what we began. Now we are going to turn our vision and our progressive agenda into reality. We are going to bring the beautiful concept of justice back to America. As I stand before you this evening, let me mention something that I learned about this morning. And that is, it turns out that back in 1938, at this very location, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt gave a speech to the people of San Diego. And given the fact that FDR was one of the great presidents in the history of our country, I am honored to be here in this very spot 80 years later. And I want to mention to you this evening a point that FDR made late in his presidency, back in 1944. And what he said, and this is a very profound point, something that I strongly believe. He said that the Bill of Rights in our Constitution was enormously important in guaranteeing Americans political rights and political freedoms, freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, etc., etc. But Roosevelt made a point back in 1944 that is as true today as it was then. And what he says is that if the people of our country were going to be truly secure, were going to be truly free, we needed not only to guarantee political rights, we needed to guarantee economic rights. And what he talked about, again, this is way back in 1944, that in a democratic, civilized society, people have the right to a decent job, they have the right to health care, and Californians, they have the right to affordable housing, they have the right to education and retirement security. In other words, and this is a profound point that many of us believe in, economic rights are human rights. And that is why this evening we say to the private health insurance companies, whether you like it or not, the United States will join every other major country on earth and guarantee health care to all people as a right. It is not a radical idea to suggest that all people have the right to go to a doctor when they are sick and not go bankrupt after they get out of the hospital. It is not a radical idea to say that we will no longer accept the absurdity of paying almost twice as much per capita for health care as do the people of any other nation on earth, while at the same time we have a lower life expectancy and we have worse health care outcomes than many other countries. The goal of health care is not complicated. It must be to provide quality care to all people in a cost-effective way. It is not, the goal of health care must not be to make insurance companies incredibly rich and to provide outrageous compensation packages for the CEOs of those companies. Now listen to this, and you tell me if this makes any sense at all. In 2017, a few years ago, the top 65 healthcare CEOs made $1.7 billion in compensation. And the guy who is head of United Healthcare made $82 million in compensation. 30 million Americans have no health insurance. We need a health care system that invests in disease prevention, that invests in doctors, in nurses, in dentists, in rural clinics. We don't need to maintain a system designed to make CEOs of insurance companies unbelievably rich. So tonight, we tell the insurance companies, whether they like it or not, we are going to pass a Medicare for all single-payer program. And when we talk about corporate greed, there is no entity more greedy than the pharmaceutical industry. So tonight, we say to the pharmaceutical industry, you will no longer continue to rip the American people off and charge us by far the highest prices for prescription drugs in the entire world. We will not accept 5 of the largest pharmaceutical companies making $50 billion in profits when 1 out of 5 Americans cannot afford the medicine they desperately need. And tonight we say to Walmart and other low-wage employers, stop paying your workers starvation wages. Yes, we are going to raise the federal minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. who works in this country 40 hours a week should be living in poverty. And yes, we are going to make it easier for workers to join unions, not harder. Now, 4 years ago, when we talked about the idea of a $15 an hour minimum wage, it seemed like an impossible dream. That was doubling the federal minimum wage. Well, since then, we have successfully pressured Amazon and Disney here in California to raise their minimum wage to $15 an hour. Costco is now paying its workers $15 an hour minimum. 5 states in the country, including California, have raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And just last week, the House Education and Labor Committee reported out a bill that will pass the U.S. House to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. And by the way, an issue of enormous import that we have got to stay focused on when we talk about the economy. And that is, we say to corporate America that artificial intelligence and robotics are not going to be used just to throw American workers out on the street. This exploding technology must be used to serve human needs, not just corporate profits. Tonight, we say to the American people, we are going to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our water systems. This is America. People in California and across the country should be able to drink the water that comes out of their faucets. And when we rebuild our infrastructure with $1 trillion investment, we're going to create up to 13 million good-paying jobs. Trump and his friends want to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the rich and the large corporations. We're going to take that trillion back and invest it in the infrastructure. You know, when you talk to psychologists, they will tell you that the ages of 0 through 4 are the most important years of human development. It is a disgrace that in America we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth, and we have a child care system that is dysfunctional. So today we say to the parents of young kids, yes, we are going to have universal affordable child care in this country. And today I want to say a word to the young people of America, and that is, we want you to have the best education you possibly can get, regardless of the income of your family. We live in a highly competitive global economy. We will not succeed unless we have the best educated workforce in the world. We once did, we no longer do. And that is why we are going to make public colleges and universities tuition-free. Let me ask you all a question. How many of you are carrying student debt? All right, here is my promise to you. If we don't entirely wipe out student debt, we're going to lower it very substantially. if the United States government can bail out the crooks on Wall Street, we can substantially lower student debt in this country. Today we say to our senior citizens, and we don't talk about this enough, there are a lot of seniors in California and in Vermont, all over this country. They're trying to get by on $12,000 or $13,000 a year. And when you're 80 and 90 and you have health care needs, you can't do that. Outrageously, in Washington, you have Republican leadership wanting to cut Social Security. Well, we got some bad news for them. We are not going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand Social Security benefits. You know, Donald Trump, with his pathological lying and his hatred and his kleptocratic behavior, he embarrasses us every day. But there's one area which is not only embarrassing but absolutely dangerous for all of us, our kids, and the entire world. So tonight we tell Donald Trump, climate change is not a hoax. It is a dangerous reality for our country and the entire world. And whether Trump and his friends in the fossil fuel industry like it or not, we are going to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel. We are going to move to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And when we do that, we are going to lead the world in saving this planet. And we are going to create millions of good-paying jobs. And today, we say to the prison industrial complex that whether you like it or not, we are going to bring about real criminal justice reform. We are going to end the international embarrassment of the United States of America, our great country, having more people in jail than any other country on earth. Instead of spending $80 billion a year locking up fellow Americans, we are going to invest in our young people. We're going to invest in jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. When we talk about criminal justice, we mean no more private prisons and detention centers. No more locking people up as a result of the so-called war on drugs. Too many lives have been destroyed. Too many people have gotten criminal records for smoking marijuana. That is going to end. And when we talk about criminal justice, we're going to end the vulgarity of today. Hundreds of thousands of Americans are in jail as we speak, and their crime is poverty. They cannot afford cash bail. We're going to get rid of that as well. And by the way, when we talk about criminal justice reform, we're going to change a system in which tens of thousands of people get criminal records for the nonviolent act of possessing marijuana, but not one major Wall Street executive went to jail for destroying our economy. as a result of their greed, recklessness, and illegal behavior. You know, they didn't go to jail. They got $1 trillion bailout. Well, maybe we are old-fashioned, but we believe in justice for all, not just for the rich. And today, and I know this is an issue important to Southern California, we say that instead of demonizing the undocumented immigrants in this country, we are going to pass comprehensive immigration reform and provide a path toward citizenship. We are going to provide legal status to the 1.8 million young people who are eligible for the DACA program. And we are going to develop a border policy that is humane for those who seek asylum. When people travel hundreds and thousands of miles from Honduras or Guatemala to reach our borders, when they flee from poverty and violence, we are not going to snatch the babies out of the arms of their mothers. Now, people sometimes say to me, they say, you know, Bernie, you're talking about making public colleges and universities tuition-free, rebuilding our infrastructure. You're spending a lot of money. That's true. That is true. Where are we going to get that money? Well, tell you a couple of areas. Today, we say to the top 1% and the large profitable corporations in this country, people who have never had it so good, that under our administration, we're going to end those massive tax breaks and those massive tax loopholes. And the billionaires and profitable corporations in this country are going to start paying their fair share of taxes. What can one say about a corrupt political system when you have Amazon, one of the wealthiest, most profitable corporations in America, last year paying how much in taxes? Don't tell me we don't have enough money to rebuild this country. And today we also say to the military-industrial complex, we want a strong defense and we need a strong defense. But we don't need to continue fighting in never-ending wars. And we do not need to spend 10 times more. We don't need to spend more than the next 10 countries combined. Brothers and sisters, we are going to defeat Donald Trump. I'll tell you how we're going to defeat Donald Trump. We're not going to defeat him because we have a super PAC, and we're not going to defeat him because we have billionaires funding our campaign. That's not us. We are going to defeat him because we are going to put together an unprecedented grassroots effort. And I am really proud to tell you that as of today, we have well over 1 million Americans in every state in this country who have signed up to work on this campaign, to roll up their sleeves to make sure that we win. And I know something about grassroots politics because that's what I've been doing my entire political life. And I do it kind of naturally because I do not come from a wealthy family like Trump, a family which gave him millions of dollars to build luxury skyscrapers, casinos, and country clubs. I did not come from a family that sent my brother and me to elite private schools. We went to public schools. I did not come from a family that gave me a $200,000 a year allowance starting at the age of 3. As I think back on it, my mother gave me an allowance of 25 cents a week. Now, as all of you will recall, just a few months ago, Donald Trump boasted. He boasted about shutting down the government and leaving 800,000 federal employees without income, left them without income to pay their bills. Now, I guess when you are a billionaire like Trump, you may not understand that what it is like for a family to live paycheck to paycheck, what it is like to need that check to pay the mortgage, to pay for childcare, to put gas in the car. Now, my family did live paycheck to paycheck. I know where I came from, and that is something I will never forget. I will not be shutting down the federal government. Now, brothers and sisters, you're going to be hearing a lot of campaign rhetoric over the next many months. So I wanted to take this opportunity to be as specific as I can with you about what a Bernie Sanders administration will be. When we are in the White House, and I use that word we advisedly, because it is not me, it is us. When we are in the White House, we are going to enact what Franklin Delano Roosevelt talked about 80 years ago, and that is we are going to guarantee a job for everybody who is able to work in this country. We need to rebuild our infrastructure. We need to transform our energy system. We need more workers in healthcare. We need to create a new child care system. There is more than enough work to be done in this country. Let's go out and do it. When we together are in the White House, we are not only going to end the decline in rural America, but we are going to attack the problem of urban gentrification and rising rents in America. Now, I know that in California, and in fact in many parts of this country, people are paying 40, 50, 60% of their limited incomes for housing. That's wrong. We're going to build the affordable housing that the American people need. When we are in the White House, we are going to move aggressively to end the epidemic of gun violence in this country and pass common sense gun safety legislation that the American people overwhelmingly support. When we are in the White House, we are going to protect a woman's right to control her own body. That decision is a woman's decision, not the federal government, not the state government, not the local government. And we are going to fight to make sure that women continue to maintain that right. Make no mistake about it. The struggle that we are talking about this evening goes far beyond defeating Donald Trump, as important as that is. And what I'm saying is, I don't want to become president and then do what many other presidents have done, and that is not fulfill their campaign promises. But this is what I want to say when I talk about it being us, not me. And that is that no president, not the most honest and well-intentioned person in the world, can do it alone. So I'm going to tell you what no other candidate will tell you. And that this struggle that we are engaged in is about taking on the incredibly powerful institutions that control the economic and political life of our nation. And I'm talking about Wall Street. I'm talking about Wall Street, where 6 financial institutions have assets equivalent to 54% of the GDP of America. I am talking about the insurance companies. If anybody here thinks that we are going to create a Medicare for all system without having the guts to take on the drug companies and the pharmaceutical industry, you are sorely mistaken. Now, a few years ago, I was here in California. I'll never forget this. There was an item on your ballot, referendum, which was fairly modest in saying that state government here in California should not spend any more for prescription drugs than does the Veterans Administration, which pays the lowest prices in the country for medicine. I was here campaigning, and it turned out that in that campaign, in one state, on one modest proposal, the pharmaceutical industry spent $131 million to defeat it. So taking on the insurance companies, taking on the drug companies, taking on the military-industrial complex, taking on agribusiness, taking on the prison-industrial complex, taking on the fossil fuel industry, this is not a walk in the park. This is going to require millions of people standing up and fighting back and telling the powerful special interests that we are sick and tired of their greed, which is destroying the middle class of this country. Now, these powerful special interests, they have an unlimited amount of money, they have an unlimited amount of power, they have a lot of influence in the corporate media. But we have something that they do not have. After all, they are only the 1%, we are the 99%. Now, we have clearly an enormous amount of work to do if we are going to win the election and transform this country. But this is what I believe from the bottom of my heart. And that is, if we stand together and we don't allow Trump and his friends to divide us up, if we stand together, black and white and Latino and Asian American and Native American, if we stand together as gay and straight, men and women, native-born and immigrant, if we stand together as urban and rural, north, south, east, and west, if we stand together, we are not only going to defeat these powerful special interests, but we are going to create a nation, the likes of which this world has never seen. Brothers and sisters, I am enormously optimistic in terms of this campaign and in terms of what happens after. If we keep our eyes on the prize, if we embrace love and not hatred, if we are prepared to work hard and with courage, we are going to make American history. We're going to transform this country, and I thank you all very much for being here tonight. Thank you. Thank you.